Nancy McSherry Jensen. I'm the CEO of The Swing Shift. I'm here with Sarah Denwald, my business partner, and we are doing our weekly Hangout Habits. This is a weekly complimentary presentation where we talk about different elements of a job search so it can get you in the habit of moving things forward. This week, we are delighted to have Ellen Mann from Arbella Insurance join us to talk about how COVID is changing relationship dependent culture. This is going to be a really, really fascinating conversation. I'm really looking forward to hearing what she has to say. A couple of upfront things. If you are looking for accountability, someone to help you with your job search in a small group setting, we do have an accountability cohort. It just kicked off. If this is something that you're interested in, please check out our accountability page. We'll have another cohort coming up late winter, early spring. We do have some on-demand workshops about LinkedIn and personal brand. And of course, our book, Back to Business, is available now, along with our e-course. So go to backtobusinessbook.com and you can find out all of this information. But today, we're going to talk about COVID and its impact on corporate and relationship cultures. I am delighted to have Ellen Mann, who's the Assistant Vice President of Human Resources at Arbella Insurance Group, join us. Arbella is a property and casualty regional insurance carrier in New England. Ellen's career is fascinating. She's been at work for 20 years. She started at Putnam Investments, moved over to Mercer, and has spent the majority of her professional career working in various roles at Arbella. She currently oversees human resource functions for the organization, particularly in the areas of talent development and management, acquisition, employee benefits, payroll, HRIS, and security. So Ellen's got she's got the entire overview of what's happening on the hiring and talent development front. She also has a very interesting personal history here. Ellen took a 2-year break, stepped carefully back into the workforce, working part-time, and then got in full-time. So we're going to talk a little bit about her perspectives on the relationship dependent culture. And then we're going to talk a little more about her journey. In the spirit of full disclosure, I have to tell you that Ellen is my first cousin and one of many of the McSherrys. And so I am especially delighted to talk with her, and you may see and hear some commonalities there. But enough about me. I'm going to stop sharing and go over with Ellen. Hi, Ellen. How are you?
Hi. Happy to be here.
It's so nice to have you here. So we've talked a little bit about what has happened culturally with COVID in organizations. We spoke with Aisha Loesch last week over at Hill Holiday, where she talked about its impact on inclusion. Today, we'd like to talk a little bit about what's changing from a culture perspective as people have worked from home and their day-to-day challenges are all of a sudden daylighted in the office. Can you talk about this a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we are fortunate. We've been a best places to work for a number of years. So we've always thought that we were really supportive of our employees. And I think with everything that happened with COVID, the relationship and the bond that employees now have with their employer has changed. And it's where people are much more familiar with with people's personal situations, whether it's their parents, their friends, family, their children. You think about some of these Zoom calls that we've had, and that we get to see people's homes, where they're working, and also kids coming in and out of the calls and saying hello, and family members. So, in some ways, if we can look at anything that's been positive through this change, we've become even closer to the individual, to the person that we're working with, and understanding some of the really good things that are happening for them, and then some of their struggles as well.
Yeah. Now, and you mentioned Arbella's already had a reputation as a best place to work.
Mm-hmm.
What have you seen from the corporate perspective that's helped adjust, right? Because accommodations and flexibility, you and I have talked about this, are really key during this time. What are some things that you've seen that really assist both the company and its employees?
So a lot of it is more frequent touch points and conversations with the people that we work with, either peers or managers connecting even more with their employees to check in on them. I think in the past we were so fortunate, and I don't know about you guys, but that sounds like we all miss those infrequent check-ins on people.
Absolutely.
And what we've really done is said, Zoom, we're very thankful for Zoom, but we need to see people, no calls, that we want to have these, face-to-face conversations so we can kind of gauge how people are doing. So that's helped quite a bit. And just, I think probably a lot of companies thought, oh, I'm great at communicating with our employees. We've had to just do that, go into overdrive with communication. Our senior people, our executives, more town meetings, definitely more touch points with the manager and the employee, and it needs to kind of go both ways. So just a lot more communication and things that we never talked about before, like what's going on in the world and COVID and diversity and inclusion and some other types of topics that I don't think a lot of companies were used to, kind of getting out there and talking to on a frequent basis with employees. 2020 changed a lot of that for a lot of us, I would think.
Yeah. And, I'm wondering, people right now, people are talking a lot about making adjustments for women and for working parents. But it sounds like what you're saying is this is across your employee base.
Yes, certainly. And I keep saying, am I just lucky? If this was 10 years ago when my kids were in elementary school, I don't know what would happen to me. So I had to continuously put myself in other people's shoes. And I think a lot of leaders need to do that and to support each other. We had to be really flexible, but also people had aging parents. People had their own concerns. So we had to be flexible across the board, absolutely, with people with school age children as things continue to evolve and develop. We've said, because at the end of the day, people want to do a good job. I firmly believe that. Um, we all know as moms, you wish you could be focused as much as you want to on work. Sometimes things take you out of, that focus. And we want to appreciate that and be flexible with people on that. So some people were working later at night, earlier in the morning, in between, when they were trying to help their kids. We really made an effort to try to support people around that. And I think other companies are doing that. It's so important.
And I think it's really necessary right now because that's the only way work is going to get done.
Mhm.
Fortunately, with the vaccines coming and rolling out, we can now start to consider a post-COVID world. And I'm wondering, have you thought a little bit about how you're going to integrate this present situation with a mind towards recruiting for the future, keeping in mind, and you hit on this, and I think it's very on point, both an aging workforce and people who are having to manage their older parents, as well as a millennial trend where people are taking multiple breaks. Sarah talks about this a lot.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So again, we come from an optimistic family, wouldn't you say, Nancy? And a
I
lot of
would.
things are kind of like, okay, well, what's the good out of this? And certainly COVID we've had our challenges, but I think at least our organization, I would think others we have to rethink how we're going to do recruiting. It's forced us to be more flexible with work from home. And then also just, with people's schedules and accommodating them. And again, going back to really understanding what that individual needs and don't assume everybody needs the same thing depending on what's happening. So I can see it at our company that we are going to continue to evolve and change with the needs of the workforce, recognizing the fact, there's things that we need to get done, but we need to, work together on that.
Right, right. Um, and I think you've talked a little bit about, some silver linings, if you will, that's come out of the benefit. We know that this has been hard on your employee workforce. And have you heard feedback from them about the accommodations and flexibility that have been made?
I think people have appreciated it, and they've been patient with us too. It has been a work in progress. There's no manual for any of us. Certainly couldn't have anticipated what happened this year. So, we've listened. We a lot of times are asking people, what else do you need? Are you getting what you need? Is this still working? So I think that's the key is don't assume certainly what we decided in March or even June still works. So we've continuously asked people, is this still working? And things could change week to week, depending on, their own personal situation. So that's what we found has worked for us. And just, our hope is that employees will continue to come forward and say, this is what I need, and that we're going to do everything we can to meet those needs.
Oh, go ahead,
I
Sarah.
love that. I love that piece about continually to evolve, right? Because maybe in the beginning of all this, companies are like, okay, we're doing this, this, and this. And then they're like, okay, all done. And then it changes. Nancy and I, we had school age children at home and remote learning and just, Zoom fatigue and all of the things, emotional, everything that was happening. Yeah, I love that. It's like a continual evolution of what is working and what isn't. And that might be different things. Yeah.
Right,
Mhm.
right. I want to switch gears here and talk a little bit about your background, Ellen. You started out, I remember when you worked at Putnam, when you worked with Paul Landry, another
Oh my
relative. We
God.
have a huge family for anybody who doesn't know Ellen or me. We have a very large family. Went to Mercer. So you took a 2-year break when your kids were little. Can you talk a little bit about your path back and what your thinking was when you went
Yep.
on that journey?
Yeah. So, for the people that know me, and I'm a real relationship social person, and so, working in human resources was awesome because I got to learn about the business, but also work with people. And after I had my second child, I knew I felt like I can't do all this very well. I think I'm going to focus on being a mom, and loved it. But after 2 years, I was like, I'm missing work, I'm missing people. And so I was able to get back in, not doing exactly what I was doing, but doing, a small part of what I was doing before on a part-time basis. It worked out well. And then over time, took on a little bit more responsibility. And then I came to Arbella, and at the time, I remember it was more than I wanted to do. So this is what I've, if I can say anything, give any advice, things don't always happen when you want them to, and I think everybody recognizes that. But certainly there are times that I didn't want to take on as much responsibility as I wanted to. And there were times I wanted to take on more responsibility. It wasn't available. So is you can have a plan, but it doesn't always go according to what your desires might be. So when I came here to Arbella, my kids were young. I was really lucky that I was able to work part-time, but in not a real big role. But over time, as my kids got older, I took on additional responsibilities, usually before I planned on it. So I kind of was like, okay, I'm going to go full time. We're going to make this work. So, and then eventually, just the way things have evolved, I've been able to take on a little bit more, just the way timing has worked, and it's worked out well when my kids are older. But that's, kind of, if I was going to talk to a friend or a family member, is to just for everybody to be open to different opportunities. You never know where a certain path might lead you. I could never have predicted this. I always thought I'd probably stay in financial services, and I'm in a very different industry, and I love it. So, kind of to be open to different opportunities that come your way.
And I think, this is something that Sarah and I talk a lot about. We talk about it in our book, and we talk about it when we work with people in our cohorts and with clients. Particularly if you've been on a break, you did what we call a Lilypad, where you take one step and you're only using part of your skill set. And then over time, you leap to the next thing. I think what you're saying is really on point, right? You don't know when those opportunities are going to present themselves. But I think you said, you were lucky. I think you also took some proactive steps to make sure that you were in the, in a position to take that next step when it presented itself. Sarah, yeah, I see
Yeah,
you've got,
I'm all about this.
yes,
I especially like how you were open to it, right?
Mm,
It's like, sure, yes, let's try it out. Worst case, you can always, go back a little bit. But I think that is the key too, is being open for more and seeing how it goes, because you'd be surprised at what you can handle. I mean, we've all kind of realized that this during COVID, how much we can
right,
handle. We're really
right.
surprised at everything that
right.
everyone's doing. But yeah, I think it's, and sometimes you have to overcome your fear of that, and you have to step out of your comfort zone, especially maybe if it's a role that you're not comfortable doing. And so I think that that is such a huge takeaway, is, try it out, you know
Mhm.
let's see how
Yeah.
it goes. And then
I
Ellen,
was,
I also wanted to go back a little bit from after your 2-year break.
Mhm.
Tell us, if you can remember, kind of how did you get back into that first role? What did you do? Did you start reaching out to your network and saying, "Hey, I'm looking to do something"? Like, kind of walk us through that little time frame, if you wouldn't mind.
Yep, that's exactly what I did, Sarah. So I've been fortunate. I've worked with some great colleagues and started to ask people, hey, do you know of anything? I'm looking to get back. I think they laughed. They're like, geez, Ellen, we thought we weren't going to see you for years. But I quickly realized how much I really miss working, but I knew I wanted to try to balance both. So I did. It was all through the network that I had. So that's how I got my first job back after having my second child, and then subsequent jobs as well. So most jobs that I've had, I've known somebody, just that I've continued relationships with, and that also certainly helps. So I would highly recommend that. Um, and then those are the people too that convince you to take things when maybe you're not ready, but you do feel the support, for sure.
So had you kept in touch with those people during your 2-year break, or were you reconnecting again after that 2-year break?
Some I kept stronger relationships with during that 2-year break, and some I hadn't really talked to much. And I will admit this was in the early 2000s. So even before LinkedIn, I mean, there's so many awesome ways to stay connected with people, Facebook, LinkedIn, that weren't in existence or barely in existence then. So it was really just email and phone calls. So a little of both.
Yeah, I love that. I know
Mm.
we get a lot of questions for younger women who are thinking about their family and maybe taking a break and, planning all of that out. And one of the biggest things we say is don't lose contact with your network, and it doesn't have to be much. It can be just commenting on something on their LinkedIn, or reaching out every so often, or grabbing a drink or coffee, every 6 months, right? Time goes fast, and so I think I love that it was a little bit of both, that some that you had kept in touch with, but you were okay reaching out to those that you hadn't been as well, which
Yes,
I think and they were just fine, right, with you reaching out to them. And
yes.
it's normal and expected. And so you can do that as well. Yeah.
Especially because I don't know if they would have reached out to me, because maybe just based on where I was in my life, they didn't know I was even interested in maybe getting back into the workforce. So sometimes just making it known and letting people know goes such a long way, and it might just work out that they have something that they can refer you to.
I think that's really sage guidance. Um, as we wrap up here, these calls go so fast. What top line, do you have guidance that you want to offer people who are looking to return after a break, whether they took it on their own, whether it's been enforced by factors that came in through COVID, or they're looking to switch roles or careers? Do you have any top line guidance from your
Yeah,
perspective?
so just from a mom, and I had seen something on a person's resume. They took a pretty significant, like a 10-year gap to raise their family, and they wrote in there that that was one of their proudest accomplishments in their life, which I thought, oh my gosh, I'd love to see that. So recognize the fact that if you're taking a break because you're raising a family, you're busy, and there's new skills that you've also gained in all of that, and never apologize. That was a choice for a reason, and it was important, and it's part of who you are, and it might even make you a stronger employee. So, and I think kind of back to what we just touched upon, reach out to people. They'll want to hear from you. And people want to, I think at the end of the day, we want to help each other, in their careers, and everybody takes breaks for different reasons, and also be open to different opportunities. It may not be exactly what you planned on, but try it and be open.
That great guidance. Ellen Mann from Arbella Insurance Group, thank you so much for joining us here with Hangout Habits. Hang on, we'll chat after we stop recording.